welcome, welcome to another live stream. Yes, it's our time. It's our time to get together and discuss the gang stalking swarm. And you gotta love the things that targets deal with because you couldn't pull it off without them. You couldn't pull it off without the swarm. And the thing about being a new targeted individual is, the fun of the whole ordeal is that, you know, all of a sudden, suddenly, suddenly you experience, well, the wonderful effects of the swarm. Okay. A lot of targets will talk about that one of the first things they notice is people treating them differently, people they know. Okay. I mean, it involves the strangers, it involves people you don't know, but the people around them, the people in their social circle, maybe even close friends, their family, their coworkers, all of a sudden, things are just different. They're treating them differently. And I've I've illustrated the process by which the targeted individual is kind of led in on this, because the scary thing is, and I've talked about this a lot, not only in live streams and videos and with other targeted individuals, is that there's probably a lot of people out there who are targeted individuals, but they just don't play the same game with you. You know, they play the game with them, but it's more subtle. The game they play with those people is always just totally covert. They don't get obvious with them. They're just, maybe it's a type of mercy, you know, that, because I've heard that from people before. Some of these people talk. They talk too much. I've hung out with them before, and you deal with the infiltrators, and they'll tell on themselves. That after it's, they've blown their cover or whatever, they'll start being more obvious, and they might see somebody walking by you as they're harassing you or letting you know what's going on. Well, that one over there, we're gonna, that's one of the sad ones, and they don't get that hostile treatment, or that one over there, that one's, we're gonna suck them dry. That's the vampires are gonna get that one, and or it's gonna be happy crazy for this person over here, or this, but, and they do. It's almost like they're mixologists. It's like they've got a different drink for, whatever target whatever they're gonna do to them. They're gonna mix it up, they're gonna shake it up, and they're gonna stir it up, and they're gonna serve it up. And I've seen different ways, and I've heard comments like that. I've seen it. I've seen them talk about that stuff in groups, and it's creepy. They'll say things. Well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and um, the creepy thing is that they go through those stages. So, like I said, for the people that deal with that covert type of thing, and they think they're schizophrenic, or they think they're, I don't know, suffering from some type of mental disorder or whatever, then it's different. But for you, and I'm assuming that unless you're one of those people that just finally caught one of them messing with you or trying to gaslight you, maybe they thought they slipped you the drug or whatever, and they did the wrong thing, and you figured out. A lot of those people deal with that, because targets, they deal with that gaslighting. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What are you talking? I don't remember anything about that. It might be right, right after they do it too. And you gotta love that. It's just, it's like they're trying to insult you at that point, right? But for those other people, maybe some of them figure it out. I think, it's like something's not right. We're not in Kansas anymore, but they'll do that. And so the first thing the target will notice is a change in their environment, along with maybe some obvious activity like surveillance or something. But there's no threats. There's just small talk, and then it'll accelerate up to the point where the joke is on you, and then they're going to be kind of hinting around or whatever, and you can feel the change, and you're not in on it anymore. You're not really in the in part of the group where you were before. A lot of targets talk about that. They used to be very social. They were popular or whatever, and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, you're out. You're out. There's no future in the company for you. All the accolades that you may have gotten in your social circle or whatever, it's gone. It's down the drain. Overnight, it just disappears, and then the targets will hear all these little direct conversations, or people will be giving each other cues in the sense that we heard about you, or there's some type of horrible rumor. A lot of targets will talk about that to the point where that, at least if nothing else, they're trying to figure out what the hell happened, right? And one of the most beautiful aspects of being a new target is that you deal with the aggressive stuff, but then when it changes, you don't know. You're not expecting it. All targets who've been doing this for years, and it takes that long to figure it out, probably at least 3 to 5 minimum. You're gonna see a change probably around that time, because a lot of times targets will deal with this stuff hot and heavy for sometimes up to 5 years or more, solid, without any breaks at all, depending on who they are, depending on what they're trying to do to you, whatever type of drink that they're trying to serve up to you, whatever kind of mixologist technique that they are using to play this game with you. It is like that. It's like the Gangstalking bar or whatever. It's like, well, this is what we're going to do to this person. We're going to make this one real paranoid. We're just going to give a little workplace harassment and surveillance to this other one over here. But this other person, we're gonna fume them. We're gonna break into their house. We're gonna assault their property. We're gonna get them fired from their job. We're gonna drive them into a place where they're either gonna kill themselves or someone else. And they'll do that. A lot of targets will deal with that. But getting back to the point, well, for the target who's new, you don't know. You don't know that they're going to flip it on you. Okay. Usually if you're a target who's experienced heavy harassment, you get out to 2 years and you think nobody has ever gone this far ever. I'm the only one in the world who's ever dealt with anything like this. It seems like it. Targets are isolated, and you couldn't be more wrong, but they're just sparsely populated throughout the world. But then I can't believe this. And then you get out to, 3, 4, 5 years, and you're just, you're completely amazed that it's still happening, which of course is only natural. But, it's around that time where you get up to between 5 and 10 years or 15 years, depending on who you are. And it might change. It might change drastically, or it might change for a little while. Right. I'm not necessarily talking about the little 2-week vacation that targets get when they go on the run, or, change states, or, leave the city or whatever, or move maybe across town or something. Because that's usually what you think at first. You're like, wow, what's going on? I'll just move and everything will be fine. That's, you got me. Whatever. You don't think people are going to follow you around like that, but they do. But usually what happens is that, within 2 weeks, it just starts again, no matter what. Or you'll get the 2 week onslaught and then they'll back off and, see if you still want to hang yourself, a week later or whatever, depending on, in fact, I heard a story from a guy like that he was on one of those campaigns where it was about 2 weeks and he ends up going to a hotel and slamming a bunch of malt liquor. And you hear a lot of targets talk about this where, you can hear them talking and you'll check into the hotel. And then, of course, people will start checking in around you or whatever, and start talking outside your window and stuff. But he was in there, and he's basically getting ready to kill himself, and he's got this belt wrapped around his neck, and all of a sudden they started in. Oh, he's not going to do it, is he? Is he going to do it? No, he's not going to do it. I don't know. Maybe he's going to do it, and he's listening to this as he's ready to end it, and it's just, but targets deal with that stuff. And, the thing is, because people try to figure out what is it that they want anyway? Well, there's a lot of things, when you're dealing with a swarm, which I've talked about this before, you have to understand the logistics of this whole thing. And a lot of people really have, I don't know, they've got a problem with that. They have an issue with it. You start talking about demons or something, then, it's like you're talking about ghosts and goblins or whatever, but it's not like that. And, when you deal with the hierarchy in this world and the framework that everyone is dealing with, targets are dealing with the real raw deal on this planet, but that it is a framework. There is a hierarchy. And it involves, the government. People, well, it's the government. The government's, well, yeah. But who owns the government right now? Well, the devil, right? The kingdom of darkness. They own everything, man. I mean, technically, God owns everything, but He has given it over, and that's just the way it is right now. Like I've said that before. They've got a job to do. They're not just running around willy nilly. Let's get. No, there's a way that they get this stuff done. In fact, I was talking to a target the other day, and I'm like, because why are people like this or why are people like that? And you see these different themes out there. Not only do targets deal with themes, but there's a lot of little cookie cutter patterns out there that you'll find people in. I'm a biker or whatever, or I do this, or I'm a prepper or whatever. But when you get into some of the other things with the deviant sexual stuff, and because you start seeing all those things intermingled when you get into the occult or whatever, and then all of a sudden you start seeing these weird rituals that people do, or they start engaging in different things. Or you start seeing it in the secret societies, and then you get people talking about like Pizzagate or, child trafficking or something. And then you hear stuff about Epstein Island, or you hear all this, and then you're like, why would they do this kind of thing? And you're talking about people who are high up in the secret societies and in the government. And you're thinking, man, they pretty much got, they could have whatever they want. Why would they do something like that? Why would they engage in pedophilia? Why would they engage in something, grotesque? And the guy I was talking to, he's like, well, they can have all that other stuff. It's the taboo stuff. And you start getting into it, and then you go through that weird chain reaction to where things just go from bad to worse. But you see all this stuff, up in the, in the occult or whatever. You see this stuff in the higher levels of Freemasonry, and you get into all this weird occult stuff and secret knowledge and hidden wisdom, and you can see the handlers, they're not human. Okay, the people that you're dealing with, well, yeah, they are, and it's like when targets deal with the directed energy weapons, and they deal with the V2K or whatever, or the people are following them or whatever's happening to them, and it's like, why are you talking about demons? Well, they don't know. Yes, you are dealing with people. Yes, you're dealing with the government. Yes, you're dealing with all kinds of things, corrupt police, corrupt this, but they're already there. They're everywhere. It's like when targets, they first experience this whole thing, and they're out, dealing with the tyranny of it, and they're driving around, and the people are honking at them, and they're getting, people are pointing and laughing, and all these things are happening to them, and they're driving state to state. They're on the run, but the thing is they don't know how it works, and they think all these people are, I don't know, talking on their phone, and they're waiting on the overpass for, here he comes. Whoa, good luck. But it's not like that. They're just already there. They're everywhere. And it's kind of like that movie John Wick, where, all of a sudden he's excommunicado, and all these people, that's just, now he's a target. And it's like that for people. Like I said, at first you start noticing it in your social circle, or you start dealing with it, the tyranny of it, and then it doesn't matter. You're trying to make a hotel reservation, and you're getting messed with. You go to the dentist office, you're getting messed with. You go to the grocery store, and people are crowding around you, and you're trying to get. They're running in you with their carts, and people are laughing and honking, and all these. It doesn't seem like you can go anywhere, and it makes you look nuts as a target, and I mentioned too that at first it's more like that for new targets. It can happen periodically for, even the seasoned targets, depending on what's happening. They'll come in and really get you, but they already know you've been sensitized. They already know that you know what's happening, and you're paranoid and everything. And so there's all the residual effects of being a long-term targeted individual. But like I said, the beauty is when it switches, and then they start playing some real psychological games with targets, to where they'll be nice to you, right? They'll get you to care again, because it's not enough to take you to the edge. They want to take you to the edge as many times as possible. Because when a target deals with this stuff long enough, like I said, you get out there for a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years. Well, now you're bracing for it. You're basically, first you're sensitized, then you become desensitized, because you know what's happening. And if you're one of those people that doesn't give up, well, now they've got to do something about that. Not only are they going to experiment around and see, how bad did we freak this person out anyway? Can they come out of it? Are they going to be rabbit holing forever? What are they going to do? Anyway, I mean, do we just have to rattle the cage a little bit? Are they going to go right back to dating? Huh? What's going on? So they want to know things like that. But at the same time, they want that emotional reaction, because, and I've talked about that with targets. If you react, you're playing into everything they want, but they have to get you emotional. And when a target becomes desensitized, when you're expecting this stuff, when you don't care anymore, right? It scared the hell out of you to think somebody was reading your mind, or it freaked you out to have all these things happen. Now you don't even care, right? It doesn't bother you. They all look pretty dumb at that point. But so they'll flip it around. And of course, I don't know if they have more fun, torturing the new target, or just pulling the flip on them. Only open the door for you. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Happy. And they might do it for a while. And there's the target just, what happened? Maybe it stopped. Maybe I flipped into another dimension again. Maybe that was a different dimension. Now I'm in this other dimension where people are being nice to me. Why? What's going on? One day they're dealing with food tampering and all these things, and then all of a sudden, the relatives are, everybody's nice to them again, you know, and people are, like I said, they're opening doors for them or whatever, very kind, giving them respect, and they'll play it along to the point where you start giving a crap again, right? Or you start caring what people think. You might even get integrated within the social group again, or get into another one. But guess what's going to happen again? That's right. They're going to do it again. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Now, I'll just say this. You don't know exactly, what God is going to do. He could stop this. He could, change it. And so if you're one of those people that just seems hopeless, what do you mean it's never going to go away? I don't know that necessarily. I'm just telling you what I've experienced myself and what I've heard from other targets. And because once you go to the sausage factory, once you see what's really out there, is there really an option other than to convince you that you were in a psychosis, which they'll do that to some people? No. All those things were just a figment of your imagination. You really were hallucinating. Bill, I'm serious. No, the world can't be that crazy. Come on now, reason with us. You were crazy, but that's okay. That's what mental illness is like. Now that you're on your meds and everything, that's why it seems normal again. And so the people will believe it. I've seen that. And they're just like, I don't know, I must have just lost it. And it's easier for them to accept that anyway. Sometimes people just want to believe it rather than to think that all the people around them could, be demonically manipulated and torture them and gaslight them to the point where they want to hang themselves or whatever. It's like, oh, they can't be that bad. The world's not that crazy. Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And that's one of the things that, when you deal with the gaslighting that targets deal with, it's like, because your brain will try to put it in a place where it's not only palatable for you, but it makes sense. Oh, they want to help me with my character defects, because they'll throw the disinformation at the target. So they just want to get me off drugs. They just want to, keep me from, isolating or whatever, or, engaging in prostitution or something. They just want to help. They're just trying to be cruel to be kind. And but the fact that I tried to shoot myself in the head and the gun didn't go off, that was just a fluke. The fact that I jumped off a bridge and survived, they didn't know that was going to happen. Or that I was, almost killed my neighbor with an AR-15. Nobody's perfect. They were just trying to help. And people convince themselves some pretty ridiculous stuff. But that's how your brain works. All the cult leaders is they really know God. They care about us. The fact that they're taking all our money and turning us into slaves and keeping us up for long hours and telling us to, I don't know, forsake our families and give them our inheritance. That's just part of it. They really love us, and it's crazy the stuff that people can believe. You get into the Stockholm syndrome and everything when you sleep deprivation, all that stuff is part of being targeted. So I think that's part of why people can believe the stuff that happens. You don't know how many people I've run into like that. But then I'll remind them and I'll say, wow, you think about what they did. You almost died, man. Oh, that's true. Oh, I almost did. Yeah, they're not trying to help you, man. Or God will save you because, they want to drive you crazy and get you to do something evil. And then, but then they'll wink and, oh no, we weren't going to do that to you, Well, they love that kind of stuff. It's gaslighting 101 with the target, but they want you to care again, right? And in the meantime, nothing is off limits. They have a lot of fun with targets, right? So they're watching you get frustrated, stuff like, scaring you, right? All these little comments, targets, they deal with some pretty crazy stuff. And then on top of that, you got the disinformation where they'll try to take you from one side to the other, the straw man argument to get you involved in that. Well, you deserve it, don't you? It's okay now. But uh, I just wanted to come on and do a live stream. Actually, I'm kind of nervous about the election, guys. I've stocked up on some stuff, and I don't know what's going to happen. I hope nothing. But my prediction is that they try to hide the results for a while. Are you guys thinking that maybe that they're going to, I don't know. We can't figure out who won the election. You think they're going to do that? Let's see what's out there in the live stream. Okay, let's see okay. Well, welcome to the live stream, Firefighter. And Colton, welcome to the live stream. Charlie Wilson, welcome to the live stream. Stay Trapped. And Stay Trapped says, I've experienced the swarm. The first time was wild. It happened in Las Vegas, and I was living out of my car. Right on. Okay. Power of the Holy Ghost. And Doctor, I have a serious question, and I'm looking for the serious question. I'm drugged at night. I believe they inject something into my gums to shrink. I'm trying to figure out exactly what they're doing to you. But that's common for targets. Welcome to the live stream, FNA. To have people come in at night, they do that. Oh, they did that to me. That was one of the first things that really got my attention. I mean, there was all kinds of little games that I dealt with, even for years, technically. And it's not until the stuff gets real obvious to where you start to look back and connect the dots. And a lot of people will go all the way back to their childhood. I mean, man, I remember that now. I remember what they were saying. I remember all those things, and it makes sense to me now. It's important not to read into that stuff, but for for the real trauma to get your attention, like I said, they could keep it covert if they wanted to, and just get just barely, the directed conversation could be real subtle. Just coincidence that we're talking about something that you happen to be thinking about, or that you dreamt about, or that you're dealing with, or whatever, and it's like people are talking about you all the time, in those real clever ones. It's like a little kid where, the parents are sitting there talking about them. They know it, but they still haven't figured out exactly what they're getting at. But they know something's going on. But they could do that. They could keep it covert, but they want to freak you out. That's the whole point. Where, like I said, they like having fun with that. But when they really up the game, they're going to start doing that kind of thing, right? They're going to get obvious, and they'll use the personal info, or they'll just drop the whole direct conversation thing and just come right up to you and tell you. They're going to drive you crazy, start messing with you straight out. And they'll let you know they came into your house. So they could get in there and do something to you where you wouldn't know. Like when they did that to me, the whole point was to freak me out. They came in, they who knows what they did. They took my clothes off and everything, and they drugged me up, and then they threw everything around in my room and threw the comforter up against the wall. They were talking really loud, and then they slammed the door. They made sure I was awake. So the whole thing was supposed to freak me out. And I got threatened before that because they were talking, all the little things that they'll try to say to try, we're going to poison you, we're going to give you cancer. I had somebody come to my house and ask to look at my fridge. And I'm like, what do you mean you want to look at my fridge? I just want to look. I'm like, what? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? What do you? No, I just want to look. And then they started talking about all the different things they could do to the condiments and the milk. And we're going to put the benzene, petroleum products in the milk. And you could get somebody cancer in 10 years. You could covertly kill them. And you could ruin their sex life and kill them. And oh, look, oh, you could hear, you ever heard what you can do to somebody's mustard? And you could put this in there and it kind of burns their mouth a little bit, but they don't notice it because the mustard's hot. And this dude went off on all these weird things. I'm like, man, what, this guy's obviously trying to mess with my head. What's up with this guy, But I didn't pay attention to him. And then later he comes over and I'm sitting around smoking pot with some other guys. And, you could tell he was there to do his little job, But I went into the fridge and grabbed some milk and took a big swig of it in front of him. And I'm like, it was good, But it pissed him off. And he goes, well, when people start coming into your house, then you're going to notice us. And I'm like, what? What did you? And my friends are like, did he just, and he's like, I got to leave. And he leaves. He walks out. And, but they'll do that. They'll come in and rearrange things, or they'll set stuff up. They'll switch stuff around, or they'll do something to you. They might, scratch you or something like that. Some of that stuff could be demonic though too. And I've heard a lot of that from targets where you'll have that. It's like 3 claw marks. And I've had that happen to me. Sometimes they're just little tiny ones where you don't even notice it until you get in the shower and it starts to burn. It's like if you were to take just, a very, I don't even know, like a real sharp X-Acto knife or something you couldn't even see, and just 3, lines across. Sometimes it'll be, around the groin area or up on your stomach, or when it's really weird, is you get it on your back where you couldn't have reached. If you were, because some people, so why maybe you're scratching yourself and okay, whatever. I don't think I could put 3 big claw marks down my back. Okay. I'm not that flexible, man. But you get stuff like that too. They'll do something, or whatever, but they want you to know, or they'll break into your house where you're gone. And the targets, they get scared, to even leave. They're worried about it. It's constant anxiety. And as soon as they leave, it doesn't matter, because you play all these little games as a target where you're guarding your house, you're guarding your food, or whatever you think they're going to do to you. And you got to leave sometime. You got to go to bed too. You got to sleep. Sometimes that's part of the directed conversations too. They'll try to figure, well, he's going to have to go to bed sometime. Yeah, we'll keep him up for a while though. And if you say anything, well, we're not talking about you. We're not talking about you. But they like that. They like those trauma techniques, and to drug people and stuff like that. That's always good. The thing about the drugging, a lot of times they'll set the target up to where they'll be hanging out with people, and you might not even know that these people are involved in drugs or something like that, because they want to discredit you, or they'll start rumors or something like that, right? And now they'll associate you with something that you have nothing to do with, or they'll even try to get you addicted to drugs before they start coming in and doing all this weird stuff to you, or they'll, paint you as some kind of, alcoholic or whatever, because when that stuff starts to happen, people just, well, they're drugged out, they're just, and if you have drugs in your system or something, well, they did it. You're doing the drugs, right? And sometimes they'll set people up when they're little kids for that stuff too. I'm not even going to get, too detailed on that one, but they will. I've heard of targets. They'll get taken to a psychiatrist when they're just a little kid, or they'll be accused of doing drugs. And so that's what happened to me. And there was nothing even going on. And then that's just, then they'll slip you drugs, right? They'll accuse you, but they'll be slipping you stuff. They'll not only will you deal with the break-ins where they're doing stuff like that, but they'll put it in your food. A lot of targets will deal with the covert poisoning or the prank type of food tampering to get you paranoid or whatever. But a lot of it's they'll put drugs in your food. There was a guy that I worked with, and he's caught him doing it. He caught him putting psych drugs in his food. He's caught him putting meth in his food, and he found that stuff on a drug test because he started feeling a little off, and there were some things they were being real covert with him. They weren't being obvious. And then he does a drug test, and then he finds out that somebody's putting meth in his food, and or even psych drugs that, 'cause some of that stuff will make you real emotional, or it'll mess with your hormones or whatever. And they'll try and gaslight you into believing you're, I don't know, having some type of emotional issue or whatever. At least that's what he thought, because people were talking about that stuff around him, and he was feeling emotional, and he was feeling off and everything. And he's like, something's going on with this. And he does it, he gives himself a drug test, and he finds out there's, antidepressant, some kind of a psych drug in his food. That's always fun. The only thing I could say about how to deal with that is, they can get, if you're relying on a deadbolt lock or something, that's not going to work unless they'll pop your windows and everything, man. I mean, I've seen it to where I don't know how they get in. Sometimes they just get in, and even the chain latches and stuff, they'll go around that stuff. That's easy. I mean, all you got to do is watch that movie, Mr. Brooks, to see how they do that. You guys see that one where they come in with that piece of wire and they flick that thing off there like it's nothing. And padlocks are real easy to get around too, because all you have to do is form a piece of metal around the shackle and slip it in there, and you can pop any of them. You got to get the kind that have the blocked shackles. I learned that the hard way because I tried to lock up my fridge, and because you deal with all the little games, and then you think you got it figured out. And at first I thought, well, it's just they must be picking the locks. So I got a combination lock set, and so then the fun was to wait until I get a bunch of groceries, and then they'd come in, and they'd change the combination after they popped it, and I'd come home and I wouldn't be able to get at all the groceries, and I'd have to break the locks out. But at that point you're scared of it anyway. It doesn't really matter. But the only thing I could say is that you want to put hardware on the inside, like something that you can literally lock from the inside, and you want to put whatever. It's people should do this stuff anyway, even if they're not targets. You should make it so people can't pop your windows or get in or whatever. It's just common sense. Crime is over the top. The world's getting worse. So it's not paranoid. The other thing is to get a camera. And everybody always says the same thing, and I've experienced it too, where they can get around it or hack it or whatever, but you don't want to make it easy. You got to set up like an obstacle course, and you got to make them jump through the hoops. They're doing it to you. So you can't let them slide on that stuff. You've got to make it difficult. You've got to, they've got to get around it. You want to come in, fine. But you're going to have to get around the cameras. You're going to have to, do something. And damn it, you might get caught. And gosh, I pray for that every day, that one of you guys is going to get some evidence to, I've talked about that too. It doesn't matter. You can get evidence, and sometimes that doesn't even do anything. That's almost like bait. And, the targets deal with, go ahead and call the cops, but targets deal with that. They'll be baited in a lot of different ways. Sometimes the bait is real extravagant too, right? They'll ask you if you oh, you had to spend another $500 on this or that or the. I'll help you out with that. And you're like, no, that's okay. I don't want to do that. And then they're coming around love bombing you or whatever. And oh no, I just came into a win. I got a bunch of money. Let me help you out here. I'll send you some money. Don't worry about it. And you're like, no, 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 that's okay. Oh, come on, let me do it. And so they're going to mail it to you. Or they're going to do something, and make sure to give me a call to see if you got that. And, oh, okay. I can't believe you're, being nice to me. Oh, don't worry about it. That's what family's for. That's what friends are for. Whatever. And then you go try and get it, and it doesn't show up, and it's not in the mailbox, or something else happens. They want you to call, and then you're like, you call them back, and they might play dumb with you or whatever, and you're like, oh well, you want money? What do you want money for? And they're recording it, and you're like, I never asked for money. Why are you talking about money? I thought you were gonna. What do you mean? When did I say that? And now they've got a recording of you asking them for money, and you never asked for it, right? Or they'll try to piss you off or whatever, and it's like, oh, you're abusing us, and or this person is, they're doing drugs, and now they're trying to get money from us, and people on the outside, they won't know. I've had that one happen too. Somebody did that to me not too long ago, and I'm like, man, I was like, what? They kept bringing it up. Oh no, let me help you out, and I'm like, okay, and then you give into it, and then you start playing this little game, right? And then they start recording your phone conversations and stuff like that, and you're like, I wouldn't have even said anything about any money if you hadn't offered me several times. And these people are well off too. It's not like they don't have, they can afford to help you if they wanted to, but that's one of the things that targets deal with. They'll deal with the bait. Sometimes it's like I said, it's pretty extravagant. But getting back to the locks, you want to put boards, whatever you can, to make sure somebody can't just pop the window. And you want hardware on the inside of your house. If they're coming into your house, you got to stop them from getting in there. One thing I can't stand, when targets complain to me about people breaking into their house, or they're this hard target, and people are after them, and all of a sudden I'm like, you got a security camera? No, I don't even care. Well, okay, whatever. It's frustrating. All these people are after them, and all this. You got a lock on your fridge? And no. Okay, and then you start wondering if they're lying to you. So don't be one of those people. I mean, I get it. People get tired of because it's not like you have to sit and watch the damn replay on the security camera every time you come home. You'll burn it out anyway. I did that with my first couple security systems, because when you're a new target, you're like, oh, today's going to be the day because you don't know what you're up against. You have no idea. Oh, I bet you they tried to get in, and all of a sudden you see this big, squelch where your security camera blurs out for about 15 minutes, and you're like, oh shit, and you gotta love those ones though. But you gotta try. You gotta do something. Hardware, get a camera. Don't make it easy, man. Okay. And firefighter says the left isn't going to like the election results. They're going to unleash their activist radicals. Both parties will be clinking champagne glasses and laughing at all of us. Yeah, I always think that too. You don't get invited to the poker table unless you get invited, if you know what I mean. And there ain't nobody at that table that didn't get invited. But that was kind of the same thing that happened down at the Capitol. And then they tried to make it look like Trump incited violence or whatever. But as far as I know, from the evidence that I looked at, They never started any of that stuff. You know, the Trump supporters were not the ones that started doing all that. That was something else. And that was a lot of that stuff was done the same way with the riots, where you hear about people, they got all of a sudden they're trucking in big, things full of bricks and arming people and sending the Antifa guys in and all this other stuff. So who knows what's going to happen? Okay, Chris, welcome to the live stream. Targeted Patton, welcome to the live stream. Yeah, Patton says they call it a nudge. Something the FBI does on a regular basis. Yeah, they do that stuff too. Targeted Pat says, before you know it, it's been 12 hours and you are still watching your security camera playback. Yeah. And like I said, then you get to the place where all of a sudden the footage goes out and you're like, oh man. Yeah. I don't know, whatever. I mean, you can't give up. You can't give up. You can't make it easy. And there's settings and stuff like that to where you can set it for motion activated, or you can set the alarm thing so you can see where the camera did something, rather than to sit and try to replay the, the whole 12-hour section. You don't want to do that, but it depends on how much money you want to spend. But they're not that expensive now. Or you can even hide an old camera, or an old phone, where you can get those motion activated apps and put that. Some of those phones don't work after a while. That's like they made them that way so that they won't even work. You try to turn them on, and those old ones where you can take the battery out. I still got a couple of them, but yeah. But you can turn those into cameras where you can hide them, put them in a plant or something. And as soon as they're motion activated, you can have alarms on them where it'll say something, scare people or you can do the covert thing. Okay. Alrighty. Marble Knight, welcome to the live stream. So you started looking up the names of your stalkers, huh? Huh, interesting. So they were hacking your phone. All right, right on. Okay. Ernie, welcome to the live stream. And Ernie says they can use a magnet to run a wire up around the deadbolt. Huh. I haven't heard that one yet. And welcome to the live stream, Phoenix Rising. For deadbolts, they usually just use a bump key, or they'll try to get your keys, or they'll get a master key. Back when this stuff started happening to me, they were using master keys, and at least that was part of the director cut. The guy that was talking about the poison and all that stuff, because he would come over and torture me, basically, that you could, pay somebody some money if you got it, that has a locksmith company, and they just happen to lose their master key, because they're not cheap. Those things are expensive, man, and you have to have like a license to have one. At least you used to. But sometimes they just get lost, and if you're dealing with somebody that's got resources, because this, when people get stalked and harassed, a lot of people will talk about the cops harassing them, or the Freemasons, or some rich people that are just in on this stuff or whatever. And sometimes it can happen that way. And I've talked about that, however you want to look at that, or the government. And but at the end of the day, you have the spiritual puppet masters. But if you're dealing with somebody with resources, that's real tough. It's one thing to get your chain yanked, by the swarm or the hive or whatever. It's another thing for professionals to be, getting in your house, doing stuff to you or whatever. A lot of targets talk about a bunch of very oppressive techniques that are used on them to demoralize them. Not everybody's dealing with that, though. Oh, God. Sorry. I'm kind of tired. I worked all day. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go back up in the comments. Let's see what was going on earlier. And FNE says, I think false memories are being planted into my mind. Interesting. That's a trip, man. Sometimes people deal with that kind of thing. And even when you're dealing with deja vu or dreams that are coming true or whatever, a lot of people get sucked into thinking they've got some kind of psychic gift or that God is talking to them or whatever. And I've mentioned this before that, some of that stuff is done just to gaslight you and freak you out, similar to the Mandela effect, where you're dealing with a lot of strange techniques and illusions. But when that kind of stuff happens, it's real. But I've mentioned before that the dimensional perspective, similar to Paul and Silas and Philippi, or other things to do with tarot cards or psychics or channelers or whatever. This stuff is real, but the information is coming from outside of the space time or our physical dimension. Or however you want to look at that, there's several different options actually. But it's not just time dilation. That might not be what's happening, but the point is that information is coming, and that type of foreknowledge is there. And so what can happen with targets is, or anybody, people who have deja vu, or they're like, whoa, I'm living Groundhog Days. We're a brain in a jar, or we're just, we've been reincarnated. That's another one, right? Because that involves the same technique where they'll take stuff from some other, someone else's life and give you dreams about it or whatever, or, pre-downloads in your brain of information that is, has basically, it's basically prophetic, but for them, it's just a different perspective. And to you, you're living that out in real time. And so when it happens, you'll have that trigger and you'll go, oh, I've done this before. Well, technically you didn't. You didn't do this before. You didn't, it seems like it. You remember it. You have that, nugget in your brain, that pre-download or whatever you want to call it, that memory that was put there, but you haven't done it before. And you might remember, I've had that where you know what people are going to say. You're like, oh my gosh, I know this person. I've been here before. You know exactly. I did that in one of my rentals, and I knew that there was, a certain, in the room. I was like, oh, I know exactly. I walked right in the rental, and I was like, okay, this has got a room in the back with no door on it, and the water heaters in the closet. I knew. I mean, we're talking 20 years in advance. I knew it. I remembered it. And I remembered other things that were going on, and I remember the conversation I was having with the maintenance guy and everything. It sounds crazy. And I had to figure out how that stuff worked. But they'll mess with people that way. So it's possible for those things to happen. Literally, that's the same thing. When all of a sudden, you get some little kid that starts talking about, living in the house that they're in. Their parents are like, we've never lived here before. What are you talking about, little Freddie? And he's like, no. And there used to be, blue paint in the basement, and we had a swing set. And then all of a sudden they find these old pictures, and they're like, that was 300 years ago. And they find the old paint. They dig through the layers, and there's blue paint or whatever, and they're like, my gosh, it's a reincarnated, person, and it's our child. But that's not what it is. It's a trick. It's a delusion. And it's like I said, the spiritual entities you're dealing with are going to mess with you. They're very good at what they do. Very, very, very good at what they do. And they'll convince people of all kinds of things. God's talking to me. I'm psychic. I was reincarnated. This is my 350,000th lifetime or whatever. And people believe it, man. And they don't know how it works. Okay. I would start praying about that. I would pray to the Lord about that, if any, because that's always, there's a lot of the stuff that targets deal with is like, I don't, there's the only thing you can do is pray. That's it. You're getting harassed. You try to get a job somewhere. You can't even, make hotel reservations or whatever. I've heard a lot of targets talk about that. They're getting kicked out of the campgrounds. They're, it's like, you know what? Just pray. Just ask God, and He can work this stuff out. Some of this stuff is just beyond. And I've talked about that before, that you're going to need the help of the Lord. You need it anyway, but especially as a target. And it's not all just some damn government thing either. There's some really weird stuff going on with this stuff. Okay. All right. Let's see what else is out here. I'm going back up in the comments, seeing what I missed. Sorry about that. I just about did. Are you guys still there? Hopefully you are. Okay. I almost shut the shut the live stream off. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to go back up at the top and see what kind of reactions I got. All right, let's see here. Chris says, I've seen the Mandela effect happen. Sometimes things will alternate, and sometimes even go back to the original. My most recent is chips. Went from Cheetos to Cheetos and back to Cheetos again. Hilarious. Well, I don't, here's something that's interesting when it comes to that there's demonic hypnosis, believe it or not, going on with the Mandela effect and other things. It's like when I've talked about delivering food before, and I'll get to the house and I'll look at the address, man, and I'll see whatever 310, Johnson Lane or whatever, and I'll get up there and I'll go and I'll walk up to the house, and it's 315 or whatever, and I know I looked at it, and I got to the point where I would have to look at it like that's not something that happens very often, but on days of heavy targeting, you'll get weird stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what you're dealing with, but when the Mandela effect, believe you me, this whole thing about the Mandela effect was planned out. It's a mass gaslighting campaign. They had different versions of movies that they played on the television premieres and in the movie theaters, and the ones they sold people were different. Okay, that's all it is. And people, they do something very subtle that you wouldn't even notice, and they might even cut to a commercial or something like that or whatever, or it'll the demonic stuff goes along with that, where they can use hypnosis, they can put subliminal stuff and just distract people or whatever. Maybe it's it's like that. Some people will say that whole thing about buy more popcorn and drink more Coke was fake. I don't know if it was or not, but if they could do something like that, they could put subliminal stuff in a movie where, oh, it's time for you, you get up and go to the bathroom or get up and walk around, and it's right towards the end of the movie, like with Moonraker. Most people aren't even paying attention to the movie anymore, right? With Dolly and the braces, or you get something like C-3PO's leg, silver, and or you get other things, and it's a setup. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. They just changed the name a little bit. They do this stuff purposefully, but it's not possible for people to remember the same thing. It's just like what targeted individuals deal with. You got, a ridiculous amount of the population that remembers these things the way that they remember them, just like everybody else. But for some reason, it's just, there's no evidence that it was all done purposefully. Okay. It's like when you have different versions of a movie. And, sometimes people, oh, wait, that's not what happened. Well, that's just a different version of the movie, man. Okay. But it'll play with people. They do that stuff to get you to question yourself. And I remember people joking around about the Mandela effect back in the 80s, man. And that wasn't even, I don't even remember when it became famous, but it certainly wasn't back then. And those are the same types of people, and some of them, the very exact people that I would, get comments from them about how we're going to drive you crazy, and, later this is going to happen, and, and I'm like, wow, you're, acting weird. What's wrong with you? But I used to get those comments. I don't know if things are, because people think that the world is like, the elite have, time travel now, and they're, creating black holes, and I don't believe that's what's going on. I think it was just a setup, man. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right. Ernie says people believed Nelson Mandela was dead. Well, they reported it on the news that he died in prison, and that's where that whole Mandela effect thing came from. But the other stuff involved in it, they've kind of tacked that other stuff in there. But they'll do that. It's like the stuff that targets deal with. It's just, if somebody gets discredited, you wouldn't believe the stuff they'll do. I had people, when I was a kid, they would lie to me. Oh, this person died. Oh no, they passed away back in such and such of a year, and they'll all get together and they'll talk to you about all these things, and then later they'll play the oh no, that person's never, we never said that. That person's still alive. They live up in wherever, and you're like, but it's the elephant in the middle of the room. You can't say anything. It's your word against everybody else's. When you're dealing with a swarm, when you're dealing with these, this hive, the Borg of, what's out there, whatever, however you want to process that, you can't try to stick up for yourself or whatever. At that point, the only thing you could do is to try to drop whatever it is, or agree. A lot of times targets, well, you're overreacting, or maybe you're going crazy, or well, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. And they're going to keep playing you. They want you to react. They just want to piss you off. So they're going to keep asking you, it's like when you get minimized by a perp, right? Oh, are you sure? I don't know. Maybe that person, just happened to be, whistling and jingling their key and, looking at you funny just because they were having a good day or whatever, whatever it is. And if you agree and say, yeah, Yeah, you're probably right. Because they love to minimize you. That's one way they can piss you off. Oh no, that had nothing to do with gang stalking. That person just smashed that shopping cart into you by accident. I know what you're talking about. But if you agree, then rather than to leave you alone about it, they'll keep bringing it up because that's all they want to do is piss you off. It's a good way to test to see if somebody is a perp. As soon as you get that little controversy going, or they start minimizing you, just agree. Yeah, maybe you're right, and just drop it flat because the whole idea is they want you to start arguing with them. You don't want to do that. You never want to do that. Pamela Barone, welcome to the live stream. Yeah, well, that's okay. You can watch it later. Okay. Oh, okay. Chris says, for the record, I'm not claiming the Mandela effect is real. Just making an observation on things can be changed subtly. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, okay. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to make you sound like you were seeing things. I swear. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, Nicholas, welcome. Okay, yeah. Well, I think I'm almost done with this one. Unless you guys have some questions. If you guys have something I could build on, we'll keep going. But I'm running out of steam. I worked pretty hard today. But if you give me some good questions, I'll go into it. Whatever. Bible questions, personal questions, gang stalking questions. Give me your questions. Chris says, "Do you know how Zeph is doing?" No, but I hope he sounds like he's doing pretty good. He also sounded a little tired in his video, and we're talking about Zeph Daniels. Um, I hope he starts making videos again, man, because I really enjoyed his videos. Um, but all we can do is hope. And like I said before, now that you brought him up, we might as well pray for him. Lord, I just lift Zeph up in prayer that his healing and his gang stalking would definitely get better, and that he would be in full health and in a sound and very pleasant state of mind. Uh, you get you want somebody's gang stalking to end, but at the same time, when you pray for people, you pray that God's will be done. We let Him figure that stuff out. It's like even Zeph would say that if you're really one of those targets who's dealing with this stuff, you're more than likely you're not going to get away. It might change. You could have times of refreshing, and you could have breakthroughs, and you go from one level of enlightenment and growth to higher levels. But it's like I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Once you go to the factory and what's out there, they can't let you just walk away unless they completely gaslight you into believing that you hallucinated everything or something. It's like the neuralizer on Men in Black. Look into the camera, poof, and they might let you go then. Then they might do it. Or they give you a lobotomy or something, or you know. But otherwise, there's really nothing they can. You know too much now. You know about them, and that's just unacceptable. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Ernie says, do you think there will be a lot of violence due to the elections? I don't know. I've been worried about that. I hope not, Ernie. I certainly hope not. My prediction, if nothing else, is they're going to try to hold back the results. They're going to delay the final outcome or something. I don't know, but I hope not. I hope there's not. I'm afraid there might be though. And Charlie Wilson, welcome to live stream, says, have you ever heard of people saying that they have been smelling animal urine in their house and on their clothes and in their car? Yeah, I've heard that stuff. I've seen a lot of strange things, and they'll do a lot of weird things to targets. They'll find devices that heat up in their house, light bulbs, the back of the oven, the microwave, whatever. They'll put something on that, and they'll do this to the other thing, and they'll it's just it they want to trigger targets, and they want you to be paranoid, and they want to traumatize you, and they want to create the environmental tyranny to where you're always in that state of anxiety. They don't want you to relax. It's just what they have to do. In order to manipulate you and feed on you and everything and all the stuff they want to do to you and discredit you and just basically tax you out, burn out your adrenal glands, drive you nuts. They've got to surround you with that type of tyranny. Matson Miles talks about that a lot. They like that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, sorry about that. And of course, the other thing is they want you to look bad. So they want you to stink, or they want your people to think that you're keeping your house dirty or something. They'll do all that kind of stuff. It's evil. It's like I was talking about earlier. When you see the things that these people are doing, and they try to, a lot of targets, like I said, they'll just buy into the gaslighting. Oh, they're trying to help me because it's just too difficult for them to grasp. It's just too much. That the world could be this evil, and the reality that they could have tried to commit suicide or kill one of their neighbors or something. They couldn't have been trying to do that. They are that freaking sick. They are that evil. They are that disgusting, and they will do it. And don't think for a minute that they are trying to help you. They are not. Okay, let's see here. Oh, Matson Miles is in the live chat. Welcome to the live stream. He deals with that stuff. And Pamela says, Dr. DeFacto, with religion, how do we do the right thing in this time? I am praying for your friend. What do you think about Scofield Bible and the Zionist? Okay, that's a fair question. The Scofield Reference Bible is that's really where the whole pre-tribulation rapture thing comes from, not to trigger anybody. There is going to be a rapture, but the thing that people don't understand is the 7-year tribulation. They don't understand what that is. That, of course, is a great tribulation that Jesus referenced, and the great and terrible day of the Lord. So when people are reading through Revelations, they don't know how to split those two up. Because Jesus said very clearly in Matthew 24, after the tribulation of those days, then the sun and the moon are going to be darkened, and the stars are going to fall from the heavens, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's a big difference than all the stuff that people will look at in the sense that they're not understanding the great and terrible day of the Lord. So when they look at all this stuff in Revelations, they'll say, well, how could the Lord come as a thief if all these weird things are happening? People are going to know the rapture is going to come. Well, it doesn't work that way. And if you really want to know the truth, there's going to be a lot of trouble over in the Middle East, and there's going to be persecution for a lot of the Jews and some of the Christians, and there's going to be a lot of things happening, but life is going to be going pretty much as normal until that whole thing lights off. And then, right at the time, everybody's probably going to be saying, oh, look at all these religious crazy people over in the Middle East. And that's always what they do. That's what they're saying now. And it's what they're going to say then. And the next thing you know, the great and terrible day of the Lord's going to start, and shit's going to hit the fan, and people are going to know at that point, and nobody's going to be persecuting anybody at that. When that hits, it's going to be over, baby. And people are going to be running for the hills, like the scriptures say. They're going to be crying for the mountains to fall on them, to hide them from the wrath of the Lamb. Period. All the gang stalkers, all these people that think they got all this stuff figured out are going to change their mind when that happens. It's all fun until it's not. Okay? But getting back to the Schofield Reference Bible, that's because they would, when you get into a Bible like that, when you get into a study Bible like, here's what the rapture is, and they'll tell you. And as far as the Zionist, okay, what is a Zionist? Okay, because that's really, when somebody starts throwing labels around, you got to be careful. Okay, so unless I'm wrong, when you look at someone who would be a Christian Zionist, they believe that the covenant that God made with Abraham is still legit, and that the cosmic geography over in the Middle East is significant, and that when the Jews were regathered back there, that was a fulfillment of the prophecies of Daniel and Jeremiah, right? Which it is. And that because people conflate things and they don't understand they don't understand prophecy. You hear preachers say, they'll quote the prophet Jeremiah, and they'll say, oh, I think everything's going to be okay for you because it says in Jeremiah that God has a future and a hope for you. Well, that may be true, but that was not for you. That was for the Jews. And the Jews are going to be scattered, right? The prophecy came down to Jeremiah in 605. The temple was destroyed in 586 BC. They stopped bringing sacrifices up to the high places in 583, and they went into exile. And then they came out. They started to liquidate their businesses after the decree went out for them to go back to their homeland in 538. And then they got everything going, and they got back by 536. But there was all kinds of things that happened. And the judicial hardening of the Jews, and the fact that they were made dull, and they didn't recognize Jesus when he showed up, and all that stuff. And then there's so many things to go into. But basically what I'm getting at is that when people say, well, the true church and the true Israel is not the Jews. And so now we've got this conflated, weird interpretation of who are the Jews now? Who is the true Israel? And it's got nothing to do with it. And when you look at it's just, there's going to be no Jew or Gentile. We are grafted into the olive tree. The nation, people don't understand what's going on. So God started over with Abraham to bring forth the Messiah. Everybody's going to be in Christ. And God had the Jewish people came out of Abraham, and so did Jesus, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, ben Joseph, ben David, and Jesus, right? And then, of course, we had the scattering of Israel and all that sort of, which was prophesied, the desolations determined, the book of Daniel. And what did Paul say, though? He said, God has not cast off the people which he foreknew. That's the Greek word prognosko. Intimately know them in the past, right? The same one that's in Romans 8:28 through 30. It's not talking about people that God knows that is omniscient foreknowledge. It's talking about people who he has intimately known in the past. Okay? And so he has not cast them off. And that their blindness is not gonna remain that way forever. Right? But if they believe, they could be grafted back in. They were cut off for unbelief, right? Don't be high-minded against the Jews and say that they were cut off so that we could be grafted back in, because if they do not remain in unbelief, they can be grafted back in. But, consider the severity of God, and that unless he cut you off, unless you not be spared, right? Which really goes after the OSAS. Right, that kind of puts a real crimp in that. Not that you could really conflate that salvation with an event anyway. It's more of a journey. But the point is that yes, in order to fulfill all the prophecies of Jeremiah and Daniel and the cosmic geography and all those things, and that when they see the sign of the Son of Man, who are the they in Romans? Okay, it's like when the Calvinists will say that Romans 9 is the doctrine of reprobation. And you just have vessels of mercy and vessels of nobility and vessels of common purposes, and the potter and the clay and all that. That's talking about the judicial hardening and the judgment of the Jews. And Paul was trying to encourage people in Romans 8 that God was going to see them through. And of course, the interlocutor and the objector would come up in Romans chapter 9. And then, well, what happened to them? Well, and Paul said it's not as though that God's word has failed. They did not receive the promise because they didn't receive it by faith. And then he goes into the potter and the clay, which is the prophecies of Jeremiah and the judgment that was brought down through Jeremiah the prophet, that he told Jeremiah to go down to the potter's house, and that he was going to reform the pot, which was Israel, because of their disobedience. Got nothing to do with people will take that into soteriology and just God is just hardening people and creating vessels of wrath. And who are the they? The they are the Jews, right? And when they see the sign of the Son of Man, they will weep as one weeps for their firstborn and mourns for their firstborn. And the veil of Moses is going to be taken off, and all Israel will be saved. When? When Jesus returns. His feet are going to touch down where? In New York City? In Papua New Guinea? No. It's going to be in the Holy Land. Okay? And as light shines from east to west, like when the sun comes up from the east to the west, it's not lightning, so shall be the coming of the Son of Man. Right? In Second Thessalonians, it says, and regarding the coming of our Lord and our gathering to him, sounds a whole lot like a rapture, doesn't it? Don't be deceived. Don't be shaken in mind. Don't think that somebody wrote you a letter and it's from us. Don't believe it. For that day, what day? The day of the Lord and our gathering to him, that is not going to happen until what? Until the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, the lawless one, and so on and so forth. And so that's the Antichrist, by the way. Because what happens in the pre-tribulation rapture, all of a sudden you could just disappear, and buses are crashing and planes are flying into buildings, and nobody knows when it's going to happen. Paul doesn't say that. Okay. And so, there's a huge problem with people who are against the whole idea of what you call it, supersessionism. We've replaced Israel. That's baloney. Okay. That's not what's happening at all. But the problem with dispensationalism is that people will say, because they don't know how to read and they don't understand that the book of Zechariah is talking about two different things. When it talks about the millennium, it talks about that time where there's going to be people who the child is going to play with the snake and it's not going to kill it and all, and the lion's going to eat hay and all that stuff. That's the millennium. But it also talks about sacrifices, because it's talking about two different times, and it's like a code. It's a secret code that because it's not like God is just going to let the principalities and the princes of the world know what's going to happen. They wouldn't have crucified him, right? They tried to kill Jesus, and I'm talking about the kingdom of darkness. Why do you think Satan took him up on the high place and said, well, if you're really the Son of God, why don't you just throw yourself off here? He was trying to see if they could kill him. What's going to happen? And so they're like, well, I don't know. Let's kill him. Let's crucify. Let's get him out of the way. Right? He's not going to let those things happen. Right? And so, what is it? Well, yes, the nations have been grafted into Israel. But when people go after the Zionists, they're all the evil. And God can use a lot of people and a lot of evil things to bring about his purposes. And those people are gathered over there. That's a fulfillment of prophecy. Not to mention the fact that Jerusalem is recognized now, and we are right towards the end when you get into the Dead Sea Scrolls. And we're right in the last, between 40 and 50 years before the whole thing's over. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it's not that far away. It could happen a lot sooner because nobody knows the day or the hour. The thing that you want to look for is all those things talked about in Second Thessalonians and what the prophets wrote about, and most of it is here. So it might not be long before the Lord does return. But as far as people persecuting, the Jews, that's anti-Semitism is going to be at an all-time high, and the Bible prophesied that, and the people are going to be judged for that. So, if people who are into supersessionism don't know how to read their Bible. They simply do not know how to read it, and people who are into the pre-tribulation rapture just haven't looked into it. And you get something like the Schofield Reference Bible, and you have the printing press and all that stuff, and everybody was just basically through data compression and presupposition. They just started, they didn't read their Bibles. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, Pamela Brown says this forum called my grandmother a Zionist. That's what they will do. They will label people. Well, you got to understand what's going on. And like I said, what you're dealing with is anti-Semitism. Is really what you're looking at, man. It's going to be pretty bad. Yeah, okay. I'm reading through here. Okay. Joe Obama, you're starting to get a little too wild here in the comments. If you don't tone it down, I'm gonna get rid of you. Just letting you know, boss. That's a warning. You won't get another one. All right. I'm just looking for something else here. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to go back up in the comments a little bit here. Let's see here. And Pamela Barone says, can you post something like this on your other channel? I am blindsided. I was gifted a Schofield Bible from the great grandfather. Oh yeah, that's actually, it's a relic. I mean, that's a piece of history. That's where the whole mythos of the pre-tribulation rapture came from. If nothing else, you've got proof of what happened. So it's a piece of history. I wouldn't worry about it at all. And I don't like to fight with people about the pre-tribulation rapture. If someone wants to believe that It's not like a huge problem. And then you got perps everywhere. It's not always just gang stalking. And I mean, there's people out there that troll and they love to fight about anything. And the pre-tribulation rapture is great material for them to fight with people. They love it. And the trolls use that stuff. And because it's like an ideologue. When you get into doctrinal debates, it's like when you're dealing with a Calvinist, they have all these, pre-established straw man arguments and philosophical conundrums and all these, out of context scriptures, and they already know that it's not true. They'll just drive you nuts and suck the life out of you. So I don't really, fight about that with people. I do have a video on the rapture timeline on my other channel, Sermon Seeker. And I went into that and I humored people with a double fulfillment, abomination of desolation. I said, but there is going to be probably another temple. And the main thing to understand when you're looking at the abomination of desolation and the end times and that final time period is the cosmic geography, and more specifically what Jesus said when he said the holy place. When you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, which is what? On the Temple Mount. So you gotta know that. But I've got the rapture timeline thing in there, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it now, because people like to fight, and I got tired of fighting. I don't want to fight with anybody anymore. I don't debate with people at all. And that I would recommend that other people, you can have a friendly discussion, but when it comes to that, it's just that you got to understand, even false doctrines have a purpose, and God allows false teachers and he allows false doctrines to exist, and he can use that to test people and see whether people know the truth. And that's part of the whole processing. And I've talked about that with gang stalking, is that everybody's being processed. The people get involved in all that stuff, and they start doing that to people and gang stalking them. They're being processed. Okay. The targets who have faith and so on and so forth, they're living by faith. They are probably the most, the best example of a giant of faith on the planet right now. If you're a believer, targeted individual, you are a giant of the faith. Okay. You got the apostles. They saw Jesus raise the dead. They saw him cast out demons. They saw him multiply loaves and fish and still and calm the storm and do all these other things. And they had problems. They the doubting Thomas. They watched. Here he was. They watched him crucified. He told them he was going to die. He told them what was going to happen. And here I don't know if I can believe it. And they had trouble with that. You'd never seen none of that stuff. If you're a believer targeted individual, you've never seen anybody get risen from the dead. You've never probably even seen a miracle before. You've seen a lot of demonic stuff, but you've never seen nothing like that, and you believe it. Okay? And that matters. That counts. When the Bible talked about greater things, are the people that come after us, is that talking about people raising more people from the dead? No. The whole idea is that you believe, and you're not seeing all these signs and wonders and everything. And Jesus even said that. He said, the generation that seeks after a sign and a wonder is a perverse generation. You got the truth. You got enough evidence. There's people out there all over the world right now that believe that there's a heaven and a hell. They believe that Jesus is coming back. They believe that they're going to be raised from the dead, and they've never seen a miracle. Okay, that's awesome. And if you're a targeted individual, it's even more awesome, because you're dealing with persecution that other people aren't dealing with. You got to remember that. Okay. All right. Well, guys, it's getting kind of late, and up towards the election, we're probably going to have to. We may have to discuss what's going on. Hopefully, nobody's going to get hurt. And I know Ernie brought that up. I just throw a prayer out there, Lord. We pray that the election goes without violence or any type of turmoil. We pray for Donald Trump that no one would try to kill him. And we also put a prayer out for all targets that they would receive peace and a time of refreshing. And if you guys have any prayer requests, put them in the comments or ideas for live streams or videos or whatever. Go ahead and put them, because I use that. Sometimes I'll see a comment and I'll be like, yeah, that's good. I'll come right on, man. Like right after I see it, I'll come and do a hour, 2 hour live stream. I'm serious. I had to come on tonight. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. I'm not going to talk about it lately, and I'd appreciate all your prayers because there's some stuff going on. I'm not going to mention it. There's a reason I'm not going to. You guys know what I'm talking about, but it's been kind of intense lately, and I'd appreciate all the prayers I can get from you guys, and I appreciate the people out there who are praying for me. It's important that we stick together as targeted individuals. It's a place where we can get together. And by the way, there's, and I mentioned this last time, that people come in and some of those, and I'm talking about the Facebook channel, some of it just looks suspicious to me. If somebody's got a legitimate profile or whatever, that, I'll put you on there. But I mean, so if you're on Facebook, at least make it look like you're somebody, but I get it. I know targets are scared or whatever. Some of that stuff you just got to get over. If you really believe that all these people are after you or whatever, they already know anyway. I'm not saying that you just got to throw it out there, but I just, I want people to get on Facebook. Okay. Harassment Support Group 911. Get on there. And like I said, if you have to make a profile or something, at least make it look like something. I mean, you don't have to put your face on there. You don't have to do, but I mean, do something, because it's, I know who, some of the perps are, and there's some people that have been flagged, and maybe it's disinformation, but I was warned about a couple people and I saw some pretty suspicious stuff. So it is what it is. But I want it to be safe for people, and I've talked about that a lot. That I mean, people need affirmation, but when it comes to giving out information or whatever, that's where it gets kind of tricky. So that's why I wanted to do the Facebook thing. Make sure you got all your stuff, private and whatever. But I've been having fun. I've been talking to people. I spent, like 4 or 5 hours on the phone. I think it was yesterday, with a target, and it's good to hear stories and just talk, just like people. I've tried to call Anthony several times, and he didn't want to answer the phone. So that's cool. I might have scared him. I don't know. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just, it's just, you already know who I am, guys. Okay, it's like talking to me on a live stream. It's just now you can, get a word in edgewise instead of listening to me, flap my lips for 2 hours. But like I said, if you have any ideas or whatever, get out there. Give me some clues as to what you want to hear about, or prayer requests. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.